What unfolds when a CEO disguises himself as a janitor and catches his own management ridiculing their staff? Daniel Carter had crafted his enterprise from the very foundation. It began as one modest shop, a humble aspiration ignited by countless hours of dedication. At this point, with more than a dozen locations spread throughout the state, he ought to have felt a sense of pride. Yet there was an unsettling feeling lingering within him. Concerns were mounting regarding discourteous managers, disengaged staff, and subpar service. Customer satisfaction was waning, and internal reports provided nothing but ambiguous justifications. Daniel despised the sensation of being out of touch. He was familiar with each employee and their challenges. Now, his corporate office resembled a stronghold, guarding him from reality. Thus, he arrived at a conclusion. If no one could provide him with genuine answers, he would seek them out on his own. A week later, Daniel entered one of his stores, transformed beyond recognition. His salt and pepper hair had been dyed black, and his usual suit was swapped for inexpensive khakis and a worn-out sweatshirt. A hefty set of spectacles and an alias on his identification tag, Mike, finalized the ruse. None of us had encountered him face to face. Many employees recognized his name solely from company emails or images displayed in the break room. He was beginning at the very foundation, tasked with janitorial duties. An ideal position. The individual cleaning the floors goes unnoticed by everyone around him. The initial hours passed quietly, spent merely scrubbing sinks and wiping down counters. As he maneuvered his mop past the break room, voices reached his ears. Did you notice Jessica in tears once more? A rich, hearty laugh. She constantly complains about her dedication to this job. Like seriously, it's retail. No one is concerned. A different tone, more cutting. Absolutely, and let's not even dive into the topic of Lewis. This person genuinely puts in extra hours to assist customers. Complete favorite of the teacher. This time we refer to him as Lapdog Lewis. Joyful sounds of mirth. Daniel stood still, caught off guard by the sudden noise. His hands clasped the mop handle tightly. He was familiar with those voices. Greg, the assistant manager, and Denise, the store manager, were two individuals he relied on to guide this location. Corporate is completely disconnected, Greg continued. They believe that diligence is important, truly. I recently reduced hours for those who tend to irritate me. Jessica will be turning 15 next month. That will silence her. Daniel felt a wave of nausea. So this was the way they operated, ridiculing their top performers. Driven by resentment, he compelled himself to shift, to inhale. He had to maintain his facade, at least for the time being. He required additional insights to grasp the complete narrative. For the moment, he continued to mop. Yet within, the flames were already igniting. Daniel focused intently, his hands tightly clutching the mop as he absorbed the weight of the words that had just reached him. The individuals he relied upon to manage the store were deliberately undermining their most valuable employees. It transcended mere incompetence. It was an act of cruelty. He compelled himself to maintain his composure. Any reaction at this moment would compromise his position. He craved a deeper understanding. Later that afternoon, he found himself tasked with cleaning near the stockroom, where he unexpectedly spotted Jessica, the employee whom Greg had ridiculed earlier. She meticulously restocked the shelves, her movements deliberate and precise. Even with the weariness evident in her expression, she greeted each customer with a smile, offering assistance to an elderly woman in reaching for an item perched on a high shelf. Daniel observed the tightness in her expression, her eyes darting repeatedly to the front of the store. She had a sense that something was amiss, and soon enough, her fears were confirmed. Denise approached with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Jessica, what keeps you lingering in this aisle? This should have been completed 10 minutes ago. Jessica stood tall. I needed to assist a client. I don't care, Denise snapped. You're spending an excessive amount of time on others. That's not your responsibility. Jessica's jaw clenched, yet her lips remained sealed. Daniel noticed the fierce determination in her gaze, the way she held back the words that yearned to escape her lips. Denise wore a sly grin. Consider yourself fortunate that I haven't reduced your hours further." With no further words exchanged, she pivoted and strode away. Daniel sensed his fists tighten. Hearing them ridicule employees in private was one thing. It was disheartening to witness them dismantle a diligent individual right before his eyes. Jessica let out a sigh, shaking her head slightly before refocusing on her work. Daniel recognized his opportunity. He strolled over, feigning an inspection of the items on his janitor's cart. "Hey," he remarked nonchalantly. That appeared to be quite challenging. Jessica offered him a weary smile. "That's simply the way things are around here. She consistently spoke to you in that manner." Jessica paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "Indeed, and for others as well, but if you resist, your hours vanish. One simply adapts to the circumstances at hand." Daniel sensed the gravity of her words pressing down on him. His employees were not merely facing mistreatment. They were being manipulated through intimidation. He created this company with the intention of making it unique, a space where individuals felt appreciated. Instead, it had turned into yet another detrimental environment. He craved a deeper understanding. As the evening settled in, Daniel found himself tasked with tidying up the back office, where Greg and Denise were busy counting the registers. He glided silently, ensuring he remained unnoticed by them. "Have you completed the schedule?" Greg inquired. Denise wore a sly grin. "Indeed, Jessica has reduced her hours to 15. Louis as well. That will show them the consequences of making us appear unfavorable." Greg chuckled. "Flawless. I've allocated some additional hours to Todd and Brian." Daniel was familiar with those names. Todd and Brian were the most lackadaisical workers in the store. He had already observed Todd neglecting customers, and Brian dedicating more time to his phone than to any other task. Denise arched an eyebrow. "They are quite disappointing, however." "Sure, but they never voice their grievances," Greg remarked with a casual shrug, "and their ability to flatter is what truly counts." Daniel had reached his limit. He completed the cleaning and departed in silence, yet his thoughts were in a whirlwind. They were celebrating complacency while penalizing commitment. If this was occurring in one store, how many more might be experiencing the same situation? That night, sleep eluded him. He pondered Jessica, Louis, and all the staff who were being stifled for their efforts to excel in their roles. He envisioned Greg and Denise managing his store as if it were their own private realm. Tomorrow, he would assemble the last fragments of this enigma, and then the moment of truth would arrive. The following morning, Daniel showed up bright and early, still clad in his janitor disguise. Today marked the moment when everything would reach its climax. He had witnessed more than enough. He had listened to all he could take. At this moment, he had to take things a step further before unveiling the reality. While he wiped the floor close to the registers, he spotted Louis coming in for his shift. The young man appeared weary, shadows lingering beneath his eyes, yet he still welcomed customers as he entered. Daniel observed Louis as he promptly assisted an elderly couple grappling with their bags, despite not being on duty yet. Greg, positioned near the manager's station, let out an exasperated sigh. "Check out this guy," he whispered to Todd, who was propped against the counter, absorbed in his phone. Todd smirked, ever the aspiring hero. "Indeed, it casts a shadow on the rest of us." Daniel found himself holding back his words. It was incredibly frustrating to witness a person who truly valued their work being ridiculed for it. He sought a final affirmation of just how dire the situation had become. An hour later, Denise summoned Jessica into the office. Daniel feigned tidying up in the vicinity, deliberately taking his time to eavesdrop. "I have no idea what you believe you're up to," Denise remarked, her tone cutting. Jessica appeared to be in a state of perplexity. "Could you clarify what you mean?" Denise snapped. "You've been engaging with customers far too much again. This is not a charitable endeavor. Your role is to restock the shelves, not to take on the mantle of customer service savior. However, isn't that a fundamental aspect of the role?" Jessica's voice carried a mix of uncertainty and resolve. Denise let out a derisive laugh. "Not if it hinders your progress. Given your lack of understanding, I'm reducing your hours once more. Daniel felt a surge of anger. That was the end. He had witnessed plenty, listened to more than enough. He couldn't allow this to persist for even a moment longer. He let the mop fall, squared his shoulders, and strode confidently into the office. Denise and Jessica exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of bewilderment and curiosity. "What are you?" Denise started, but Daniel interrupted her. "I've seen enough," he declared, his tone unwavering yet resolute. Jessica scowled. "Excuse me?" Daniel lifted his hand and removed the flimsy glasses he had been sporting. He ran a hand through his dyed hair, tousling it just enough for hints of his natural color to peek through. He witnessed the precise instant understanding illuminated Jessica's gaze. "Oh my goodness," she murmured. Denise's complexion drained of color. "Hold on, that can't be right." Daniel shifted his focus to her, his face a mask of mystery. "It's certainly within the realm of possibility," he remarked. "It's time for us to engage in a meaningful discussion." He exited the office and projected his voice so that everyone in the store could hear him. "Attention, everyone, please come together." At that moment, the employees paused in their tasks, a mix of confusion and compliance washing over them. Greg walked over nonchalantly until he caught sight of Daniel's expression. His smirk vanished in an instant. "Allow me to present myself correctly," Daniel remarked, surveying the space. "My name is Daniel Carter, and I am the proprietor of this company." A profound hush ensued. The employees cast bewildered looks at one another. Lewis appeared to be grappling with the reality of the situation. Jessica stood still, her expression a blend of disbelief and a glimmer of hope. Denise and Greg appeared as if they wished to vanish into thin air. Daniel faced them, his voice unsettlingly composed. "For the past few days, I've been immersed in this store, observing the operations, absorbing the sounds, and gaining insights." His stare grew steely. "What I've discovered is simply intolerable." He cast his gaze upon Jessica and Lewis. "I've observed individuals who strive tirelessly for their clients, who genuinely invest in their roles, only to face repercussions for their dedication." Then his gaze returned sharply to Greg and Denise. "I've witnessed managers who ridicule, demean, and intentionally sabotage their employees." Greg took a deep breath. "Excuse me, but I still have more to say." Daniel interrupted him. He addressed the remaining staff members. "If you have ever experienced feeling overlooked or disrespected by the leadership here, now is the time to voice your concerns." A moment of uncertainty. Then Jessica lifted her hand. "I have," she said, her voice more resolute now. Lewis trailed behind. "Same here." Subsequently, another team member, and yet another. Before long, almost half the team had their hands up. Daniel gave a slight nod. "That's everything I required to understand." He glanced over at Denise and Greg once more. "Both of you are dismissed. In effect, right away." Denise's mouth moved in a frantic rhythm, reminiscent of a fish struggling for breath. "Hold on." "No," Daniel declared, his tone unwavering. "Your misuse of power has fostered a harmful workplace atmosphere, resulting in the departure of valuable team members. This matter is settled and not open for debate." Greg shook his head, striving to maintain his composure. "You can't just walk in here and take over," Daniel interrupted, asserting his authority. "I certainly can." Security, whom Daniel had discreetly briefed earlier, moved forward. "Kindly gather your belongings and make your exit." Denise and Greg found themselves with no options. They burst out, their expressions flushed with shame. Once they had departed, Daniel redirected his attention to the staff. "Changes are on the horizon from this moment forward. It's time to stop penalizing dedicated employees. Cease to indulge in idleness. For those with any concerns, feel free to reach out anytime." Jessica's eyes sparkled with appreciation. Lewis appeared to breathe a sigh of relief. Throughout the store, a transformation unfolded, a burden eased, heralding a fresh start. Daniel had infiltrated to uncover the reality, and now he was determined to restore this place properly. The store fell into a hush for a brief moment after Denise and Greg exited, the gravity of the recent events enveloping everyone present. Gradually, the atmosphere started to relax. Employees shared glances, some murmuring to one another, while others remained frozen in disbelief. Daniel inhaled deeply. Much remained to be addressed. Letting go of two managers did little to repair the harm they had inflicted. He faced the gathered employees, his voice unwavering yet authoritative. He acknowledged that this wouldn't resolve all issues immediately. I assure you, transformations are on the horizon, and they will begin today. He cast his gaze upon Jessica and Louis. The unfair treatment you both have endured ends here. Your hours will be reinstated beginning next week. From this moment forward, I will ensure that dedication is recognized and celebrated, rather than overlooked. Jessica's lips parted slightly in astonishment, as if she had never allowed herself to dream of such an outcome. Louis offered a slight nod, his mind still sifting through the details. Daniel pressed on, speaking to the whole team. I would love to hear from each and every one of you. I'm eager to discover what else has been unfolding here that has escaped my notice. If you've experienced unfair treatment, been overlooked, or have suggestions for improving our workplace, I'm eager to listen. For the first time, employees showed no reluctance. A voice from the cashier broke the silence. Shifts were often cut without any prior notice. We would arrive only to discover that we were no longer on the schedule. A stockroom employee remarked that they were made to clock out early to cut costs, yet were still expected to complete all their duties before departing. Others contributed, outlining a trend of favoritism, intimidation, and questionable management choices that had severely impacted morale. With each word exchanged, Daniel felt his anger swell, not directed at them, but rather at his own shortcomings. How did it come to this without him being aware? I appreciate your honesty, Daniel remarked as they wrapped up their discussion. I won't simply ask you to have faith that change is on the horizon. I will demonstrate for you. He retrieved his phone and dialed a number. A regional manager and an HR representative arrived within the hour. Daniel arranged for them to be placed in the break room, allowing employees to confidentially voice their concerns and offer suggestions. He then shifted his focus to the operational aspects. He spoke to the remaining supervisors, emphasizing that from now on, leadership would be determined by merit rather than favoritism. Promotions would be achieved through merit, not given to those who merely knew how to please management. Jessica and Louis received an invitation to step into leadership roles temporarily as the search for a new store manager commenced. Jessica paused thoughtfully before giving her consent, whereas Louis readily agreed without a second thought. In the hours that followed, Daniel collaborated closely with the team, not in a position of authority, but as a peer who truly grasped their challenges. He filled the shelves, operated the register, and even assisted in unloading the newest shipment in the back. While he toiled, he absorbed the sounds around him. Workers who had previously held back now expressed themselves openly, voicing their discontent and aspirations for an improved work environment. As the day drew to a close, the atmosphere in the store transformed. All apprehension had vanished, and there was no longer a need to glance back in worry. Workers advanced with greater assurance, aware that their voices were finally being acknowledged. As Daniel secured the premises for the evening, Jessica made her way towards him. I never imagined I would witness this, she confessed. I believed that the situation would only deteriorate further. Daniel locked eyes with her, his demeanor grave. I take full responsibility for that. She shook her head, realizing she should have recognized what was unfolding much earlier. You are aware now and you took action. That exceeds what many in your role would typically accomplish. Daniel offered a slight nod. He understood that this was merely the start. There remained additional stores and other managers to follow up with. He refused to allow this to unfold in any other place. Yet this evening he was certain he had truly impacted this place. He was relentless in his pursuit to transform each of his stores into environments where employees felt respected, valued, and empowered to thrive. The following morning, Daniel found himself in his office, the burden of all he had discovered still heavy upon him. The shop he had recently explored was merely one among numerous others. If such toxic leadership had established itself there, how many other places were enduring the same disregard? How many talented individuals have been lost due to the actions of managers like Denise and Greg? He decided he would no longer rely on reports or second-hand accounts. He had witnessed how that resulted in distorted information, justifications, and an increasing detachment from the true state of his own company. No, he had to delve further. Daniel retrieved a comprehensive list of all his store locations. He had paid a visit to one. There were an additional 12. He was determined not to settle for merely one undercover operation. This needed to escalate into something grander. In the following fortnight, Daniel made his way to 5 additional stores, each visit marked by a new disguise. Assuming various positions, from stock clerk to cashier to warehouse assistant. What he discovered was a combination of various elements. Certain establishments operated seamlessly, led by managers who valued their staff and truly invested in the success of the business. However, what about the rest? Others reflected the detrimental atmosphere he had observed in the initial store's favoritism. Workers hesitant to voice their concerns, and leaders who wield authority as a means of domination instead of guidance. At one location, he observed a supervisor reprimanding a cashier in front of customers for failing to upsell adequately. The young employee's hands shook as she fought to keep her tears at bay. Daniel struggled to stay in character, yet he mentally jotted down the supervisor's name. In a different store, he noticed a diligent warehouse worker, Malik, tirelessly compensating for his colleagues, while his manager overlooked the situation. When Daniel nonchalantly inquired of Malik why he remained silent, the man merely shrugged. "Voicing your thoughts doesn't make a difference," Malik had whispered. "They pay attention only to those who flatter them." In that instant, Daniel realized this was not just a singular occurrence. It was a pervasive issue that ran deep within the system. By the conclusion of his covert visits, Daniel compiled a roster of managers requiring replacement, employees worthy of acknowledgement, and policies demanding urgent reform. He was efficient with his time. Upon returning to headquarters, he summoned an urgent executive meeting. The conference room was filled with his top regional managers and HR representatives, all oblivious to the impending developments. Daniel positioned himself at the forefront, his demeanor inscrutable, and then he commenced. "For the past few weeks, I've been observing operations in our stores," he stated matter-of-factly. A hush fell over the room. Nervous glances were exchanged, while others leaned in, captivated by the unfolding scene. He went on to say that he had witnessed the finest moments of our company. Team members who are committed, who take pride in their tasks, and who strive to exceed expectations for our clients. He took a moment, allowing his words to linger before his tone grew more severe. "And I have witnessed the depths of despair." He detailed the events he had observed, the injustices, the bias, the pervasive atmosphere of intimidation that had established itself in various places. He called out individuals directly, holding nothing back. The surprise was evident on the faces of several executives who had believed everything was proceeding without a hitch. "This is unacceptable," Daniel stated with conviction. And it concludes here. He meticulously detailed his strategy. Initially, there should be swift dismissals of managers who have misused their authority. Some executives wavered, apprehensive about potential backlash, but Daniel swiftly dismissed their concerns. "I will not retain individuals in leadership roles who compromise the principles of this organization," he stated. "If that entails making difficult choices, then so be it." Next, a reorganization of the approach to promotions and salary increases was necessary. Eliminate any bias. Performance reviews would incorporate input from colleagues, guaranteeing that those who made genuine contributions received acknowledgement. Third, an anonymous reporting system for employees to voice workplace concerns without the fear of backlash. At last, Daniel revealed a lineup of unexpected store visits, this time opting for authenticity over disguises. He would be making surprise visits to various locations to oversee operations. It's time to step out from behind the reports and corporate filters. As the meeting drew to a close, the atmosphere in the room had transformed. Some executives appeared anxious, while others radiated enthusiasm. Transformation was inevitable, regardless of their preferences. In the months that followed, the effects were unmistakable. Unpleasant leaders were removed. Workers who previously felt voiceless now found the power to express themselves. As morale improved, customer satisfaction started to increase. Jessica, Lewis, and Malik have all ascended to leadership positions. Once disregarded, employees are now at the forefront, crafting the company's future. And Daniel, he finally felt a sense of belonging to the company he had created. He had witnessed the reality up close and had taken action in response. This marks merely the onset.